Here is this alternate version of your script in S paragraph form with minimal changes, preserving the meaning, tone, and powerful style while making it flow as one continuous motivational narrative. Have you ever spoken to someone so grounded that it shook you? Not because they were loud or trying to prove a point, but because they'd built something unshakable within themselves. A code, a core that radiated stability. It forces you to question how much of your own life is noise, distraction, ego, false identity. There's a rare strength that doesn't need explanation, a quiet presence that hits harder than any punch. And when someone speaks from that place of deep alignment with who they are, you don't argue, you listen. In today's world, there's this arrogant narrative that faith in God or religion is outdated, a fairy tale for the weak-minded. But that perspective is more than wrong, it's blind. Because the kind of faith I'm talking about doesn't come from fear, it's forged in war. It's not a safety net, it's a sword. It belongs to those who have walked through darkness and chosen something real to anchor themselves to instead of drifting into chaos. You want to talk about strength. Try praying while everything in your life is collapsing. Try holding back when your ego screams for revenge. Try fasting when your whole body is begging to give in. Try following a code in a culture that glorifies temptation and mocks discipline. That's not weakness. That's warfare, spiritual warfare. Because real faith demands you kill off every part of you that doesn't align with truth. That's painful. That's uncomfortable. But that's what real strength looks like. Culture doesn't want you strong. It wants you distracted, divided, and addicted to comfort. Faith, real faith, is a weapon. It keeps you grounded in a storm of lies. It sharpens your focus when the world is trying to blind you. It gives your suffering meaning instead of just pain. People who think faith is easy have never lived it. They've never had to confront their own ego in silence, never chosen purpose over pleasure. Because if they had, they'd know. Faith isn't passive. It's a rebellion. It's a daily war against everything fake inside you. And those who carry that faith, they walk differently. You see it in how they move, how they speak, how they treat others. They don't crave the spotlight. Their power isn't performative, it's internal, eternal. They're not chasing identity because they already know who they are, and more importantly, whose they are. That's not something the world can give you. That's the kind of soul depth that humbles you. Because once you stop being the center of your universe, everything shifts. You stop reacting and start living with intention. You make life about more than yourself. And ironically, that's where fulfillment begins. Not in possessions, not in experiences, not in followers, but in alignment, in obedience to truth, in clarity about why you're alive. That's the kind of faith that silences a room, not with volume, but with truth. Something the world forgets, but your soul still remembers. Submission. That word alone scares people. They equate it with weakness, with surrendering power. But that's only because they're looking through a distorted lens. The truth is, you already submit every single day to your cravings, to your ego, to your comfort, to your fear, to your addictions. The only question is, are you submitting to something that builds you or something that breaks you? There's nothing weak about consciously submitting to a higher truth. That's real power. It takes more courage to surrender to truth than to live in illusion. Most people are addicted to control, yet they're not free. They're slaves to whatever brings short-term pleasure. But when someone says, I won't serve my ego, I'll serve what's right, what's divine, that's not giving up, that's rising up. Real submission isn't passive, it's active. It's choosing to obey your conscience instead of your cravings. It's doing the right thing when no one is watching. It's waking up early when your body wants to sleep. It's walking away from temptation not out of fear, but because you have standards. That kind of self-command, that's strength. Not indulgence, not chaos, but discipline. And it's deeply liberating. When you stop trying to control everything, when you trust the process, when you believe obedience will take you further than shortcuts ever could, you step into something unshakable. That's when your peace comes, not because storms stop, but because you're no longer swayed by them. You're grounded, you're guided. You know who you serve, and that clarity is peace in motion. Most people think freedom is doing whatever you want. Whenever you want, skipping the gym, eating junk, ignoring responsibilities. That's not freedom. That's slavery in disguise. That's being controlled by impulses. Real freedom is earned through discipline. The person who can delay gratification, who can say no to what weakens them, who shows up even when it's hard. That's the person who is free. Everyone else is just reacting. Discipline doesn't reward you instantly. It doesn't flatter your ego, but it gives you ownership of your time, your body, your mind, your life. And the more you stick to your code, the more power you accumulate. It's not about being perfect. It's about having standards that don't collapse when life gets hard. People rise not when things are easy, but when they stop waiting for easy. Discipline is invisible. It's the workout no one sees, the meal you skip, the words you choose not to say. It's showing up to train when your body wants to quit. And even though it's quiet, its results are loud. You can see discipline in someone. It's in their walk, their eyes, their energy. Most people don't lack dreams. They lack habits. They wait for motivation, but motivation is fickle. Discipline creates it. It says, I'm tired, but I go. I failed before, but I'll try again. That's the edge. That's the difference between success and regret. Discipline is the bridge between who you are and who you could be. And here's the beautiful part. Once it becomes your default, life actually gets easier, not because your problems vanish, but because you get stronger. You stop making weak decisions. You stop betraying yourself, and slowly life starts to align. You gain self-respect. You stop reacting emotionally and start leading with principles. Freedom is not doing what you want. It's becoming the kind of person who doesn't want what will destroy them. Pain is the greatest teacher no one wants. Everyone runs from it, labels it, blames it. But pain doesn't lie. It shows up and says, change something. Most people miss that message because they're too busy avoiding it. But if you face it, sit with it, really listen, it becomes your compass. Pain points to growth. The reason it hurts so deeply is because it touches your core, a wound, an insecurity, a truth you've avoided. Pain holds up a mirror, and if you look close enough, you'll see not weakness, but opportunity. If your body is breaking, maybe it's time to train differently. If your relationships are toxic, maybe it's time to grow or let go. If life feels hollow, maybe it's time to seek purpose instead of pleasure. Pain doesn't want to break you. It wants to build you. But it can only do that if you stop running from it. Pain becomes dangerous only when you bury it. It transforms into anxiety, depression, addiction. But the moment you turn toward it and say, what are you trying to teach me? That's when you reclaim your power. It stops being your enemy and becomes your guide. Greatness is always born in pain. Wisdom, empathy, perspective, all forged in discomfort. The strongest people didn't avoid suffering, they learned from it. Because they knew what was on the other side: freedom, alignment, transformation. So when it comes, and it will, don't resist it, use it, own it, let it shape you. Everybody wants peace, everybody wants fulfillment, but not everyone wants the price: discipline, showing up, pushing through. Freedom doesn't come from doing what's easy, it comes from doing what's necessary. Discipline is not a prison, it's the key out of the prison of weakness and regret. You think you're free scrolling for hours, skipping workouts, giving into cravings. That's not freedom. That's sedation. That's dopamine slavery. Real freedom comes from building routines, rituals, and structure that sharpen you. No one's coming to save you. You can watch every video, read every quote, but if you don't act, nothing changes. Discipline is personal. No one can give it to you. You earn it. And once you do, your whole life starts to shift. It's not about perfection, it's about consistency. Every small promise kept builds confidence. Confidence isn't hype, it's history. Discipline doesn't kill your creativity, it makes space for it. Because your best self can't rise in chaos, it rises in structure. In a mind that's trained, not tossed around by every impulse. You have to command yourself, lead yourself, because if you can't, you'll never build anything real. You want to become who you were born to be. Start with discipline. Not just in workouts or food, but in your thoughts, in your words, and how you show up for yourself. Say what you mean. Do what you say. Set your alarm and get up, not for likes, not for validation, but because you said you would. Every time you keep your word to yourself, you become unshakable. You build yourself in the dark, quietly, relentlessly, in daily war with the part of you that wants to stay small. You don't need to have all the answers. You don't need to be perfect. But you need to decide. Decide you're done living on autopilot. Don't blaming the past. Don't waiting for a savior. This is your life, your soul, your responsibility. No one else will carry your dreams to the finish line. That's on you. And that's the beauty. You're free. Free to rise, free to rebuild, free to fight for a life of meaning. But it'll cost you comfort, laziness, excuses. And it'll be worth it. Don't chase hype, chase truth. Chase the highest version of yourself. Some days you'll feel it, most days you won't. But do it anyway.
That's when it counts.
That's how you build a legacy, not in the spotlight, but in the shadows. Not when everyone claps, but when no one believes but you. So whatever's weighing you down, shake it off. Whatever fear is whispering in your ear, confront it. And whatever voice inside you says, you're made for more, believe it. Not tomorrow, not next week. Right now. Because your life changes the moment you decide it has to. Every transformation begins with a decision, but it's sustained through devotion. One spark can light a fire, but it's discipline that keeps it burning when the winds of doubt and delay come rushing in, and they will. Because the moment you decide to rise, everything around you will test it, your habits, your fears, your friends, your comfort zone. That's when you find out if the change you want is something you're merely interested in or something you're truly committed to. Interest fades. Commitment endures. You can't fake it. The path demands more than just enthusiasm. It requires consistency when it's boring, grit when it's hard, and belief when no one else sees what you're building. Most people quit not because they don't want success, but because they didn't expect the sacrifice that comes with it. But greatness doesn't come gift-wrapped. It's earned in the hidden hours, when no one's watching is gone and only your why remains. And that why needs to be deeper than vanity. It has to be rooted in something sacred. Your values, your faith, your vision. That's what separates those who chase trends from those who build legacies. Because let's be honest, this world will try to seduce you with shortcuts, distractions, and cheap rewards. It will hand you comfort disguised as success, but real fulfillment isn't found in quick highs. It's found in the long game, in the silent choices that no one sees, but everyone eventually feels. It's waking up early when your dreams still weigh heavy on your chest. It's staying true to your principles even when it costs you opportunities. It's walking alone sometimes, not because you want to, but because you refuse to settle for less than truth. That kind of integrity doesn't scream. It whispers. It moves in silence, but its impact echoes for generations. You see, there's a war happening every day, not out there, but inside you. A war between the version of you that wants to evolve and the one that wants to stay comfortable. And the battleground is your decisions. Every choice you make is a vote for who you are becoming. You don't become strong by accident. You don't find purpose by scrolling through distractions. You become who you're meant to be by choosing it again and again. And when the world tries to pull you off course, when the noise gets louder, you don't need to shout back. You need to go deeper. Ground yourself in something eternal. That's what faith is. It's not wishful thinking. It's a foundation. It's knowing that no matter how wild the storm gets, you're rooted, unmoved. Because your identity isn't built on applause or attention. It's built on obedience to something greater. The greatest threat to your potential isn't failure. It's forgetting who you are, forgetting your calling, forgetting the fire that once burned inside of you. And every time you numb your pain instead of learning from it, every time you trade purpose for pleasure, you drift further from the life that was meant for you. But here's the truth. No matter how far you've wandered, you can always return. You can always reset. It doesn't matter if you've wasted years. What matters is what you do now, because redemption doesn't start in a crowd. It starts in your heart, in a single decision, to get back up, to recalibrate, to rebuild. There's no shame in falling. The shame is in staying down when your soul knows you were made to rise. So stop playing small to make others comfortable. Stop dimming your light to fit in with people who've settled. You weren't created to live average. You weren't created to simply survive the day. You were created to walk with power, to speak with clarity, to love with depth, to fight for truth even when it's unpopular. But that kind of life requires sacrifice. It means giving up the lesser version of yourself so the higher one can live. It means letting go of the excuses that have kept you chained, the laziness you've justified, the bitterness you've clung to. Growth always starts with subtraction. You don't add strength, you uncover it by removing what weakens you. Every person you admire, every strong, grounded, purposeful soul, they weren't handed that life. They built it brick by brick, day by day, through thousands of silent private battles, and now it's your turn not to copy them, but to face your own mirror, to own your story, to stop running from the parts you don't like and start transforming them, not with shallow slogans, but with real hard, honest work. the kind that no one applauds, the kind that leaves you sweaty, sore, and proud. Because here's the secret: nothing external can fill the void of a life unlived. And deep down, you already know what you need to do. You've always known you don't need more motivation. You need a decision, a vow, not to anyone else, but to yourself. And once you make it, once you truly decide, it changes how you move. You start protecting your energy. You stop gossiping. You stop wasting time. You stop letting emotions hijack your purpose. You become intentional, focused, present. You look people in the eye because you're not ashamed of who you are. You hold your head up because you know what you stand for. And even on the days when you feel like a mess, you still show up. Not because you feel like it, but because it's who you are now. That's what transformation looks like. It's not about perfection. It's about pursuit. It's about becoming just a little more dangerous to your doubts every single day. And when people ask, what changed? You won't have to say much. They'll feel it. In your tone.
In your silence. In your peace.
Because nothing speaks louder than a life lived in alignment. No argument, no quote, no viral video, just your presence. And the more you live in that truth, the more others will remember their own. That's how you lead. That's how you inspire. Not by preaching, by embodying. And that starts now, not when life gets easier, not when you're less busy. Now, because time isn't waiting, and neither should you. And here's the thing about the path you're on. It will get lonelier before it gets clearer. Not everyone will understand your discipline. Not everyone will respect your boundaries. Some will mock you for being too intense, for walking away from things that don't align, for refusing to play the game everyone else is playing. But you're not here for approval. You're here for growth. You're here to become the kind of person your future demands. You're here to live in integrity, even when it costs you connection. Because the truth is, anyone you lose by being honest wasn't meant to stay. If they only support you when you're compromising yourself, they were never in your corner. Let them go. You weren't created to dilute your soul just to blend in. And in that silence, when you finally cut out the noise of people pleasing and fake validation, you begin to hear something different. Your own voice, your conscience, the whisper of purpose that's been there the whole time, waiting for you to get quiet enough to listen. That voice doesn't shout, it doesn't beg, it waits. And once you start honoring it, once you make decisions based on it, your life begins to shift. You stop chasing and you start creating. You stop performing and you start building. You stop seeking outside of yourself because you've already found something deeper within. This is where the real work begins, not in proving anyone wrong, not in chasing claps or status, but in becoming someone you respect. When you can look in the mirror at the end of the day and say, I was honest, I was disciplined, I did the hard thing, I lived aligned. That's a win. That's what builds self-trust. That's what builds power. Because there's nothing more dangerous than someone who doesn't need permission to live fully. And the more you live like that, the more you realize how rare it is. Not because people aren't capable of it, but because most are too afraid to try, afraid to leave the herd, afraid to face themselves, afraid to fail. But here's the paradox. When you finally stop running from those fears, you realize they weren't that big to begin with. You realize the monster was always smaller than your mission. You're not here to avoid fear. You're here to confront it. Because on the other side of fear is clarity. On the other side of fear is strength. On the other side of fear is your next level. So stop treating fear like a stop sign. Start treating it like a doorway and walk through it. Not because you're fearless, but because you're willing to look foolish, willing to be uncomfortable, willing to be different. That's where the growth lives. In the moments when your heart is racing and your mind is filled with doubt and you move forward anyway, you want confidence. It doesn't come from compliments. It comes from scars. It comes from showing up on the days when your hands are shaking, when your legs are tired, when your soul feels hollow and still saying, I'm here. That's real confidence. Earned, not bought, lived, not posted. And the wild thing is, the more you live this way, the more you'll notice something strange happening. Peace. Not the kind that comes from a quiet room or a beach sunset, but the kind that comes from knowing you're on the right path. Even if it's hard, even if no one claps, even if it doesn't look glamorous, that's peace. That's the reward of obedience. You'll also start to see how much time you used to waste, how much energy you gave to things that never gave back. The fake friends, the shallow distractions, the empty conversations. You'll feel a hunger for depth, for meaning, for people who challenge you, not flatter you, for routines that grow you, not numb you, and you'll find them slowly, quietly, because when you walk in truth, truth attracts truth. But don't expect a crowd, expect a tribe, a small, focused, unshakable group of people who are on the same mission, not to be seen, but to become. And here's something else they don't tell you. When you live like this, when you build discipline and faith and silence the noise, you become deeply unattractive to the systems of control that run the world, because you're no longer easily manipulated. You don't need their dopamine. You don't need their approval. You're free. And that kind of freedom terrifies the machine. They want you obedient to trends, not truth. They want you addicted to comfort, not committed to purpose. But when you walk away from that, when you become sovereign in mind and soul, you stop being a consumer and start being a creator. That's why this journey is hard. Not because it's impossible, but because it's rare. You'll lose people, you'll lose habits, you'll lose versions of yourself. But what you gain in return, priceless. You gain clarity. You gain consistency. You gain a sense of self that no trend, no trauma, no opinion can shake. You become the kind of person others come to when their world falls apart. Not because you have all the answers, but because you've built something real. You've built peace. You've built strength. You've built a life that speaks for itself. And that's the goal. Not fame, not perfection, but alignment. Living a life that doesn't need to be explained. A presence that can be felt in silence. A walk that speaks louder than any words. That's what discipline gives you. That's what faith unlocks. And that's what your soul has been craving all along. So breathe, reset, and keep walking. You're not late, you're not broken, you're not behind, you're becoming. And every single step, no matter how small, matters. This isn't a sprint, it's a lifetime. And every day you wake up and choose discipline over comfort, purpose over pleasure, truth over trend, you're winning quietly, steadily, eternally. Let me know if you'd like the next part, or if you want this whole series exported as a Word document, PDF, or paired with motivational image, prompts for video or social media. You said, continue 900 words. ChatGPT said, absolutely. Here's the next continuation of your powerful narrative, flowing smoothly with another 900 words. There's a moment, usually after you've committed, when everything goes silent, not in the world, but inside you. The noise that once controlled your life, the doubts, the excuses, the constant overthinking, it begins to fade. At first, it's unsettling. You've been so used to the mental chatter, the anxiety, the rush of dopamine from distraction. But now there's space, stillness, and that stillness isn't empty, it's sacred. It's the space where your real self begins to speak. The part of you that isn't afraid, the part of you that remembers who you were before the world told you who to be. And in that stillness, you find something the world can't offer, presence. Presence changes everything. When you're present, you stop being pulled by every craving, every comment, every trend. You become grounded. You see clearer. You move slower, but with more impact. You're no longer chasing validation. You're walking in truth. And ironically, that's when you become most magnetic, because people aren't drawn to noise. They're drawn to authenticity, to someone who knows who they are, who isn't begging to be liked, but radiates something solid, something rare. That's what presence gives you. And presence is a product of discipline, of having cleaned out so much mental and spiritual clutter that what's left is peace. That's what you're working toward, not just goals, not just achievements, but a state of being, a way of living that isn't reactive, but intentional, a life that feels as good on the inside as it looks on the outside. But don't get it twisted. This isn't about becoming emotionless. It's not about being robotic. It's about being rooted. So when life shakes, you don't fall apart. When people leave, you don't collapse. When plans fail, you don't lose your identity, because you've anchored yourself to something deeper than circumstance. You've built your life on principles, not preferences, and that kind of foundation can weather any storm. You'll notice, too, that your definition of success starts to change. It's no longer about how much you can collect, but how deeply you can connect with your creator, with your purpose, with the people who truly matter. You stop needing applause to feel worthy. You stop measuring your life in likes and start measuring it in impact, in obedience, in alignment. Success becomes something internal, a quiet knowing that you're on the right path, doing the right things. Becoming the right person, even when no one's watching. That's success. That's freedom. That's peace. And here's something most people miss. Peace is a responsibility. It's not something you stumble into by accident. It's something you earn through healing, through honesty, through hard conversations, through breaking cycles, through saying no when your old self would have said yes. Every peaceful person you meet has fought battles you'll never see. Don't mistake their calm for a lack of struggle. It's not that they've never felt chaos. It's that they've mastered how to respond to it. And you can too. But it starts with accountability. You can't change what you won't confront. You can't confront what you're still blaming others for. And you can't grow in a lie. So here's the challenge. Take inventory, not just of your habits, but your beliefs, the stories you tell yourself, the identity you've been clinging to. Are they real, or are they leftovers from someone else's version of who you should be? Because if you're still living out a script that was written by fear, by culture, by trauma, then it's time to rewrite. You're not stuck, you're just used to the cage, but the door's been open the whole time. The key isn't out there, it's in your daily choices, in your willingness to do what's necessary, not what's easy. That's what separates the few from the many. Everyone wants change, but few are willing to go through the fire. Few are willing to be misunderstood. Few are willing to walk alone for a season to realign with truth. But those who do, they become unstoppable, not because life gets easier, but because they stop breaking when it gets hard. They've trained, they've suffered, they've rebuilt, and now they walk with a quiet strength that doesn't need to announce itself. You'll know when you've tapped into this. You'll stop rushing. You'll stop comparing. You'll stop chasing everything that doesn't align. Instead, you'll start building slowly, methodically, intentionally. You'll start living with standards so high that they automatically filter your environment. You won't need to cut people off. Your energy will do that for you. You won't need to beg for peace. Your lifestyle will produce it. And when chaos does come, because it always will, you won't panic. You'll pivot. You'll adjust. But you won't collapse because you're rooted. And that's the gift of a disciplined life. You start to trust yourself again. And that's rare. Most people walk around not even trusting their own word. They say one thing and do another, make promises to themselves and break them silently over and over. That's why they feel lost. Not because they don't have potential, but because they've lost faith in their own consistency. But the good news, you can change that. Starting today, keep one promise to yourself, then another. Stack them. Build evidence, not for others, for you. That's how confidence grows. From history, from proof, from keeping your word in private over and over until your mind has no choice but to believe in your strength again. Because at the end of the day, discipline is love. Love for your future. Love for your purpose. Love for the people counting on you. It's choosing what's best over what's easy. And that love will test you, it will stretch you, but it will also transform you into the version of yourself that your soul has been crying out for. The one who doesn't just dream, but delivers. The one who doesn't just talk, but lives. The one who doesn't just survive, but thrives. So whatever season you're in right now, whether you feel broken, burned out, or behind, remember this, you're not finished. You're being refined. Every hard thing you're facing is shaping you. Every obstacle is carving out strength. Every delay is building patience. Every heartbreak is increasing your depth. Nothing is wasted when you live with purpose. Not pain, not failure, not loneliness. It all becomes fuel. It all becomes part of your training. And when you finally step into your next level, you'll do so with a power no one can take because it wasn't handed to you. It was earned in silence. There's a certain kind of wisdom that only comes from walking through fire. It's not taught in books. It's not found in comfort. It's earned in the trenches when everything in you wants to quit, but something greater whispers, not yet. That whisper is what carries you through the darkest nights. That whisper is what becomes your edge, because once you've suffered and survived with your soul intact, you stop fearing pain. You stop fearing failure. You stop fearing what people might think. Why? Because you've already faced worse. You've already endured the storm. And instead of breaking, you learned how to bend. You learned how to pray through it. You learned how to stand even when everything around you was falling. That kind of resilience can't be taught. must be lived. And when you finally come out on the other side, you'll carry something unshakable, not pride, not arrogance, but clarity. You'll see through things faster. You'll hear people differently. You'll start to discern what's real and what's noise, because pain purifies your perception. It strips away the lies you used to believe about yourself. It humbles you in the best way possible. You stop pretending. You stop performing. You start becoming. You no longer chase validation because you found something more valuable, self-respect. And that right there changes how you move forever. You stop over-explaining. You stop needing to be understood by everyone. You stop lowering your standards just to keep shallow connections alive. Instead, you live with purpose. You move with intention. Your yes becomes sacred. Your no becomes clear. You don't entertain drama because your peace is too expensive. You don't chase attention because your identity isn't for sale. And you don't settle for average because your soul knows it was built for more. That more isn't about money or fame or status. It's about depth, meaning, alignment. It's about waking up and knowing why you're here and living that out, even when it costs you, especially when it costs you. Because sacrifice is the currency of legacy. You don't build something eternal by coasting. You build it through fire, tested faith, through silent endurance, through daily choices that no one applauds, but heaven remembers. And that's where faith becomes your compass, not blind faith, not wishful thinking, but living, breathing, tested belief. Faith that shows up when your plans fall apart. Faith that keeps you grounded when fear tries to take over. Faith that doesn't need everything to make sense because it trusts the one who sees the whole picture. That kind of faith reorders your life. You stop being a slave to circumstance. You start becoming a student of it. You ask better questions, not why me, but what is this teaching me? You stop resisting the process and start partnering with it. And when people see that in you, when they see that you're unmoved by chaos, unshaken by setbacks, unbroken by pressure, they'll ask what your secret is. And you'll smile, because it's not a secret. It's submission, not weakness, not defeat, but full surrender to something greater, to a truth that doesn't shift with trends, to a code that doesn't crumble with criticism. That's the paradox the world doesn't understand. True strength comes from surrender, not to your ego, not to your desires, but to your purpose, to your mission, to your creator. That surrender shows up in the smallest places. It's in the way you wake up before the sun, not because it's easy, but because it's right. It's in the way you train your body, not for vanity, but for stewardship. It's in the way you bite your tongue when you could lash out, but choose peace instead. It's in the way you walk away from shortcuts, from temptation, from easy wins that come at the cost of your soul. That's what submission looks like. That's what strength looks like. It's also in your daily disciplines, the things that no one sees but define everything about you. Prayer, reflection, service, silence. These aren't just habits, they're weapons. They protect your mind from chaos. They guard your heart from pride. They keep your soul aligned when the world is trying to pull you off center. Without them, you drift. With them, you rise, quietly, consistently, eternally. Because success without soul is still failure. What good is it to gain the world and lose yourself in the process? That's not winning, that's wandering. And most people don't even realize they're lost until it's too late. That's why you must stay rooted, stay grounded. Build your life from the inside out. Don't let likes validate you. Don't let setbacks define you. Let truth guide you. Let discipline build you. Let purpose refine you. That's the only way to last. Temporary success is easy. Eternal impact is different. It requires a different posture, a different pace, a different perspective. You can't microwave greatness. You cultivate it. You sow in seasons of obscurity. You water it with prayer, with patience, with persistence. And when the harvest comes, it won't be just for you. It'll be for everyone around you. Because people don't just need your wins, they need your wisdom, your story, your scars, your silent battles that prove it's possible to walk through hell and come out whole, but only if you choose the narrow path, the disciplined path, the path of daily sacrifice. Not because you're trying to impress anyone, but because you're trying to honor the gift you've been given, this life, this calling, this breath. None of it is guaranteed. All of it is sacred. So don't waste it, don't numb it, don't coast through it. Rise, train, prayed, love, show up, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard, because that's when it counts. That's when you're being forged. And one day, People will look at your life and think it was natural, that you were just born with clarity, born with discipline, born with peace. But you'll know the truth. You'll know it was built in silence, in struggle, in obedience, in relentless faith that refused to die. That's the legacy. Not fame, not perfection, but transformation, becoming everything you were created to be, one silent, disciplined decision at a time. There's a reason why most people never tap into their full potential. It's not because they don't have the talent or the intelligence or the resources. It's because they never decide. They never fully commit. They leave the door cracked just in case. They dip one foot into growth while keeping the other in comfort. But you can't cross into the life you were created for while holding on to the version of you that's afraid to change. Growth demands all of you, your focus, your energy, your daily decisions. It won't work if you're halfway in. It only begins to transform you the moment you burn the bridge back to who you used to be. And make no mistake, there will be resistance. Every time you try to evolve, your old self will fight to survive. It will remind you of your past failures. It will whisper lies that you're not ready, not strong enough, not disciplined enough. But that voice is not truth. It's just the echo of who you used to be. And it gets quieter the more you act in alignment with who you're becoming. The moment you step forward, the moment you refuse to go back, that's when transformation accelerates. That's when the fire starts forging something new, something better, something unshakable. But you have to be willing to disappoint some people. You have to be willing to let go of old environments, old habits, even old relationships that no longer serve where you're going. And that's hard because growth is lonely at first. People will misunderstand you. They'll call you arrogant when you become focused. They'll say you've changed because you have. You were supposed to. You weren't created to stay stagnant. You weren't created to settle into the version of yourself that society molded. You were made to evolve, to rise, to reflect the greatness that lives within your soul. So don't apologize for changing. Don't shrink yourself just to make others comfortable. Don't explain your boundaries to people committed to breaking them. Your life isn't a group project, and your purpose isn't up for debate. You owe no one an explanation for choosing growth, and anyone who truly loves you will never ask you to lower your standards. They'll rise with you, or they'll respectfully step aside. That's the beauty of alignment. It does the separating for you. You don't have to force anything. You just keep walking, keep building, keep becoming. The right people will find you on the path, not in the pit. And the longer you walk this path, the more you realize the power of consistency. You start to understand that greatness isn't built on hype. It's built on habits. It's not the motivational speech that changes your life. It's what you do after it. It's the early morning when you don't feel like getting up, but you do. It's the workout when your body says, quit, but your soul says, keep going. It's the temptation you walk away from, not because you don't feel it, but because you've trained your spirit to lead. That's where power is born, not in comfort, but in quiet commitment. Discipline is doing the right thing, especially when no one's watching, especially when you don't feel like it, especially when you're tired, discouraged, and nothing seems to be working, because that's when it counts the most. And little by little, your life begins to change.
Not overnight.
Not all at once. But inch by inch, you start walking taller. You start speaking clearer. You start showing up with energy and conviction that others can feel before you even open your mouth. That's what self-respect does. It changes how you carry yourself. It changes how you treat people. It changes what you allow into your life, because once you've sacrificed for growth, you no longer tolerate what drains you. You no longer allow weakness to masquerade as just being human. You know what you're capable of, and that becomes your standard. And when setbacks come, and they will, you face them differently. You don't break, you adapt. You pause, regroup, and recalibrate. You don't lose your head because your foundation isn't built on external validation. It's built on character. And character doesn't collapse when life gets hard. It gets louder. It gets clearer. Pressure reveals who you are. But more importantly, it reveals who you're becoming. And if you've been consistent, if you've been disciplined, if you've been doing the work in silence, you'll realize you were built for this. You'll realize the storm wasn't sent to break you. It was sent to strengthen what was already growing inside of you. That's why you can't fake this. You can't post your way to peace. You can't talk your way into transformation. You have to live it. You have to earn it. And the only way to do that is by showing up again and again. When it's easy, when it's hard, when you're winning, when you're failing, because consistency isn't about being perfect. It's about being present. It's about doing what you said you'd do long after the mood you made the promise and has left. And every time you do that, every time you follow through, you build trust with yourself. And that trust becomes your power. Eventually, you stop asking, can I do this? And you start saying, this is who I am now. That's the shift. That's the moment the transformation becomes your identity. You no longer need external motivation to act. You are the motivation. You no longer need applause to feel validated. You're already validated by your own effort. You no longer need to be pushed because your purpose is pulling you. And as you continue to rise, you begin to realize something even deeper. This journey was never just about you. It was about everyone who would be impacted by your discipline, your children, your family, your community, your future. You weren't just breaking chains for yourself. You were breaking them for generations. You weren't just building a stronger life. You were becoming the example of what's possible. Your obedience becomes someone else's inspiration. Your courage becomes someone else's conviction. Your healing becomes someone else's hope. That's the legacy you're building, not the car, not the house, not the job title, the character, the peace, the clarity, the discipline, the soul that was forged in the fire and came out glowing. That's what can't be taken from you. That's what lasts, and it's worth every sacrifice. So whatever you do, don't stop now. You've come too far. You've grown too much. You've survived what should have broken you. Now it's time to build, time to rise, time to walk like you know you're chosen, time to live like you know you're needed. Because you are, and the world doesn't need more noise. It needs your presence, your strength, your discipline, your example.